Coming up, in space, no one can hear historians scream. Guys, we've got 3 historians, me, John Wyatt Greenlee, and Kate Sheppard. Alien Romulus is next on Historians of the Movies podcast. Okay, so the cool part about you not being able to see you, John, is you're almost like an alien xenomorph right now. You're kind of lurking in the shadows.
Yes.
At this moment.
In this particular space, nobody can see me scream.
Yes, absolutely. And no one can see you and then scream either.
Yeah.
Right, which is much more common, honestly.
Can I tell you just right off the bat, John? I thought about you in this scene, when the facehuggers are in the water. I'm like, there should be eels here.
There should be. That would have been better.
The fact that they had those things looking like spiders, it just was feeding into so many different fears. Fears of things being in the water around my feet, fear of spiders, and then, of course, being taken over by an alien being.
We all fear
trifecta.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. Kate, I actually think what you're saying is you have fears of attachment. Is actually your fears
Can't handle
of closeness. I love you, and you're like, no, I'm not ready for that.
The closeness of the appendage going all the way down my trachea. That's the fear I have.
Okay, we're about to get canceled 14 seconds into this. Welcome everybody to the nonsense that is us. All right, so we're talking. Fuck it, let's just start. So we're talking Alien Romulus, and John and Kate. You guys have never actually spoken before.
No,
right? Just on the text.
Hi, I'm waving too.
And now we follow each other on Blueski.
On Blueski, which you have done reluctantly, madam.
I have 4 followers on it. I need to work on that.
We'll fix that. Well, first of all, your first post was I hate it here. And everyone's like, oh, she's fun. So
I am very fun. I'm realistic. I'm a realist. That's what I am.
So I made the switch to Blueski 2 weeks ago. We're doing Darkest Hour tonight. It's almost been a soft reboot of HATM in some ways because for the longest time we were doing movies and stuff like that and started to challenge the idea of what a history movie is and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I think in some ways we kind of got away from quote unquote history movies a little bit. And so we started showing more of those again recently. People are like, oh, I like this. It's maybe people do actually like history in their history movies. So
a little bit.
We've got those lined up. But it kind of restricts us in some ways to biopics or epics, but at least for a little while. We're gonna do the RBG film.
Oh, really?
Week.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. I think so. I think there's Rachel Gunter was telling me that I believe there's a special women's day on the following Monday or something. There's a day of remembrance or something. I can't recall, but I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
She was like, hey, do you want? She's like, can we get that on schedule? I was like, okay. Also, if Rachel Gunter, who is on the pod all the time and who is on HATM all the time, asks me, it's hey, can we show this movie? I'm not going to say no. And I look like a real prick if I say no. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not historically noteworthy enough for us to talk about. But I would like to get ski school on the show sometime. So, let's talk about the historical implications of Alien Romulus, which has been in the theaters for 4 days. So, anyway, we want to do this because Alien is important. In fact, I'll tell you guys the quick story here. We did one of the very first early pods we did was on Alien with a really talented scholar, and the pod did not record. And I felt and it was the whole time. Okay, and I've told you guys this. Sometimes when you're recording the pods, you're like, "This is really fucking good." It's you've got it and stuff like that, and all that. And sometimes, and I've had a couple that have actually never made it on air because it was just too much work to pull out. Sometimes people just don't have personalities. Sometimes Thomas Lecoq is on the air.
That just ruins everything, man.
Right?
He's not here, so I can talk badly about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He'll never know.
No. All we do is see red.
Never.
hair, and then he's so angry because he's French. So, are French people notably angry all the time? Are we getting?
They complain a lot. They just complain a lot.
Is it maybe that he's angry about being French? Is that what it is?
Is he really French? I mean, I know he could like speak French and has a French name, but
he was born in France.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if you're going to say things like being born in a place makes you of a place, I mean, just basic, American law, whatever. But still, whatever. It's fine. I guess
that puts into doubt like all of the nationality of all those aliens, though, right? That we just saw.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we should. Oh shit! You're right. Are all these aliens actually corporate employees?
Property.
Are they? Okay, look at this. All right, let's talk about this movie. First and foremost, we're talking Alien Romulus today. Put you guys together mostly because I was like, I need my friends to come on this air. Thomas was actually scheduled to come on and then had to like go across the country back to his home so he could see his family, which is bullshit. So we can't see you, J-Dub, but I know that you can see us. So if you're listening in, I am throwing some heavy air quotes in on this right now. All right. Let's talk about our credentials. Usually, when people come to the podcast, I'm like, "Hey, tell us who you are," so like we know that if you study, I don't know, French food, you're a snail expert or whatever. You can talk about that. But we're going to talk about our bona fides today in terms of aliens. So let's start this off. Kate, how many alien movies had you ever seen prior to watching Alien Romulus?
One, and that was the Prometheus one. I saw Prometheus. Does that count?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Okay. So I saw that one and that was it. And then when you told me, hey, we're going to do this, I was like, okay, I have no real reason to be here except for the fact that I'm scared of all of the films, and I will go and I will see this movie. And, yeah, I do history of Egyptology, but I was thinking about this because I do know a bit about the first Alien film, and I know obviously that Sigourney Weaver plays this very sort of strong feminine role, and those are the people that I study all the time historically anyway. So I thought maybe that's my little niche into the system.
I actually like the idea that you had not had a big exposure to the Alien films.
Yeah.
The idea like coming directly into this, maybe for the first time or so forth, actually gave us maybe a fresh perspective on this. So I was actually looking forward to hearing just your thoughts like, okay, what the fuck is going on here? Uh-huh. John, what about you? Are you familiar with all these movies? Have you seen them all? What's up with you?
No, actually, I'm in a kind of similar position to Kate, which is great. So I saw the original Alien when I was like 15. So obviously I don't remember any of it because I was like 30 years ago.
The original Alien came out like 79, John. You're not old.
Well, like I didn't see it when it came out, man. I'm not that old, but
no.
But I saw it in I don't know, like at junior high school or high school at a sleepover party or something like that, and so, which is great. So like I have memories of it, but not like I couldn't detail it for you. And I'm not a huge horror movie fan, so I've never seen any of the other ones. So I've seen the original one and this one, which the ones in between, nope, no idea. So.
Well, that's perfect because I don't know that everybody has seen all of the Alien films either, except for Kate. I'm going to tell you this: in one of the Alien versus Predator films, the climax is a bunch of aliens and predators fighting on top of an Egyptian pyramid in Antarctica.
Oh, so my son had a theory, Jason, as to why I was invited on here, and that was that you thought, he's 10, he thought that maybe you thought that aliens built the pyramids, and that's why you invited me to watch Alien, so that you could drop this surprise on me that like you really think this. And I said,
hold on, Kate. Are you saying they didn't?
I am.
I'm looking skeptical. Yeah, I know you can't see me.
Are you looking skeptical? Mm-hmm.
I am giving you my best skeptical look. Yes.
This is so weird doing this without John Wyatt, like being able to see him right now. I'm just imagining the faces that J-Dub, because John Wyatt's been on this pod like, I don't know, 47 times right now. So I kind of know.
Conservatively, yes.
Something like that.
That's my primary credential at this point. Like that's sort of that'd be the top
line on your CV.
Exactly, top of the CV. Yeah.
Yep.
That actually gets to why you were both invited, because I knew you would say yes. So I was like, hey, I need someone to go watch this Friday and then we'll talk about it Sunday. Who will say yes?
I watched it this morning.
Oh,
Jesus. Okay. Good. Wow.
Okay.
Theaters are showing Alien on a Sunday morning in Utah?
Absolutely.
I saw that if I couldn't make it to one yesterday, then I could have made it to the 10:55 a.m. showing here today.
That is exactly the showing that I went to, not where you are, obviously.
No, obviously, yeah.
That would be weird. So I'm wondering, actually, can you guys talk a little bit about the experience? Were the theaters packed? What was your experience going to the theater?
No, it was quite not packed. There were, I don't know, a couple of people in my row and a couple of people in the row in front of me, and like some people behind me. I don't know, maybe 15 other people in the theater. Mm-hmm. So it was not at all full. No, it's Utah on a Sunday morning. I'm sure they're all at church or something. So, or coffee shops, but. No, it was pretty vacant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, so Jason and I were texting a little bit yesterday because I was like, I'm going to go, but like I bought my ticket maybe a half hour before the show because you can go on and you could like pick your seat. When I picked my seat, there were 6 other people who were seeing it at that time. And then there were 10 people in the theater, and I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to go have some popcorn. And Jason was like, I've reserved my popcorn and drink. I'm like, I am going to walk up. I am going to get my popcorn. I'm going to walk right into the theater. They don't even check. Like I bought the ticket, but they don't even check your tickets anymore at this particular theater. You just walk in and just go.
Listen, you live in Missouri. If you are like breaking the law or like word is going to get out, it's not going to go to law.
Yeah, no, and the town has 20,000 people, so it's like
people. You can't trust her. Not her.
That was pretty much my experience, though. Too, Kate. I did exactly the same thing. I reserved my ticket like 45 minutes before I went, and there were just a couple people who had bought tickets already.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you guys. Most things in Pueblo, Colorado, are awful.
Really?
It's just the worst town, second worst town I've ever lived in. It's just not good. But
what's the worst?
Lake Placid, Florida.
Oh,
it's awful. It was actually, there's an interesting history about Lake Placid, Florida. It sits right in the middle of the state, and it was essentially colonized by people from Lake Placid, New York, like creating their own version of New York, like in the early 1900s. Like, so they were creating all these like little resort towns. And then they all collapsed in the 1920s during the Depression. Mm-hmm. And then what's left is like it's now just a farming and ranching community because you got a lot of orange groves and cattle operations, which worked well for me because I was writing my dissertation about cattle at the time. But it was awful. I think it's the poorest, maybe the 3rd poorest county in the state. I was teaching a high school there, making $34,000 a year while writing my dissertation. Super conservative, it was awful. It was just terrible. So there was that. And then slightly above that is Pueblo, Colorado, where everything is horribly overpriced because you're supposed to be excited that you live in Colorado. I went to a Cinemark, and actually our theater, I was going to say, trying to get back to, is our theater's not bad. Actually, it's a Cinemark. They serve Coke. I won't go to theaters that serve Pepsi. And I actually reserved mine online because I've got I paid like $10 a month, and then I get like a movie credit and I get discounts and everything. But I thought I'll save some time because now you get 30 minutes of trailers before.
Yeah, I was late to the theater because there was a car accident on the way, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to miss the opening, but I sure did not.
I love trailers, man. I love trailers, but at this point in time, 30 minutes, I'm exhausted because now I'm in the theater for 3 hours by the time I get home, right?
Yep.
But my theater, I went yesterday at 5. I went Saturday at 5 p.m. here in Colorado, and it was packed. Theater was packed.
Oh wow!
All right. General thoughts on this movie. When you saw this movie, what'd you think? How did you feel? Is this a scary movie? Kate, you say you don't like scary movies.
I don't. And I'll tell you what, I did not like any of the trailers before the movie because they were all horror movies, which I find just unnecessary in some ways. Like we had Nosferatu was one of the previews, and then Smile was another one of the previews, and it's like I don't need to see that in my just daily life. So I kind of however, the film itself, as somebody who does a bit of STS as well, science, technology, and society, or science and technology studies, and I'm on a STEM campus, so a lot of the stuff is AI. I thought, man, I came away. Are you ready for my big umbrella lesson? Is it too early in the podcast for the big umbrella lesson?
We need a lesson somewhere.
Bring it.
Oh, we got a lesson. Okay, 2 main lessons. One, AI is not good, right, in the long run. I know we can't say that tech is good or bad, but like Bilbo Baggins, whoever that guy's name was in the film.
Yeah.
Ian Holm,
right? He was objectively one of the bad guys, right, in the film, and he's AI. Mm-hmm. And then also that we know that colonization is bad, whether it's in space or on Earth. So why can't we take this knowledge that we know from science fiction and actually apply it and utilize that in our everyday lives to check ourselves? Do you know what I mean? Like, these are the things that we should be learning from these films if we're going to learn something. Obviously, it was very entertaining. You're stressed the entire time, but like, that's what I came away with. And maybe I overthink it, but hey, I'm an academic. I overthink stuff. That's what I'm supposed to do. So those were my feelings coming out of it, but also absolutely entertained. It was really stressful, but in a good way.
John, were you scared? How did you feel about
that? So kind of like Kate, I was not super. You asked me to watch this, and I said yes because of course I did. But I wasn't super looking forward to it.
Otherwise, I would threaten you with my
exactly, because you know too much. I wasn't super looking forward to it because I don't really like horror movies, but I didn't find it generally scary. I think stressful is a really good description. It does a good job of ratcheting up the tension, but there aren't a lot of like jump scares and things like that. I didn't find it super scary, just sort of stressful. So it was in some ways a really beautiful movie, right? Mm-hmm. Like some of the cinematography is gorgeous. I was somewhat surprised by that, and I thought some of the choices they make in terms of lighting is really interesting, and sort of presentation of atmosphere and environment. I think your Kate's point about AI is well taken, especially given that like Ian Holm has been dead for 3 years at this point, or 4 years.
Yeah. I felt weird about that.
Because
I there were a few times in this film where I was kind of taken out of the film, and there by a couple choices. Some was the fan service that people had kind of talked about, which we'll get into in a little while. But I kept wondering, I used to be married to an attorney, right? So I kept, listen, I'm divorced from an attorney, but she's the mother of my children. I am still chained to an attorney for the rest of my life. And I kept wondering, Christine, don't kill me for saying that. She also listens to the pod. I kept wondering about the legal effects here. And Kate, you're talking about how AI is the bad guy. And we've seen all of these debates recently with like the Actors Guild strike and all these kind of things about determining the rights to one's body and person and voice, even after they're gone. So I kept wondering, like, what was this case with Ian Holm? Did he sign off on this? Or the filmmakers just
his estate or something?
Because he was actually he actually played the android Ash in the very first film.
In the original,
he turns out to be one of the bad guys. The bad guy is Weyland-Yutani, right? The bad guy is capitalism in Alien,
right?
Yes.
And this was actually something I was gonna say to Kate's second main takeaway.
Go for it.
I don't think that the lesson from the film is that colonization is bad, because there's good colonization in the film too, right? Like there's this dream of escaping to a different colony planet that's not sort of run by capital enterprise, right? It's not a company planet. So the problem isn't the the colonialism per se, although that also does run you into aliens every once in a while. It's the sort of industrial nature of it that's the problem.
The extractive nature of colonialism?
Yes. Extractive in some different ways, but yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And sort of running through my head a little bit through the film was that song 16 Tons, because she goes up and she's like, I'm, spoilers here. She's like, I've worked my hours. I get to go now. And she's like, whoops, sorry. Now you have to work for 5 or 6 more years. The company appreciates you. And I was like, oh, man.
That little bit of petty bureaucracy was great.
Yeah.
What is this, academia? Right? For those of you in the know, right?
I was glad I wasn't with anybody, because I would have turned to them and been like, this is what happens when but I didn't. I wasn't with anyone, so I held it all in. Till now.
It's the reason why we can't go to the movies with our kids anymore. They're like, you fucking stop already. Absolutely. Like that's what it's like. You're like, son of a bitch. And she had the credit, like she had the hours, right?
Yep.
I do want to say this. Can you talk briefly? Because John, you brought this up a second ago. This is a beautiful film to look at. If you just turn the sound off, right, and maybe that would kind of take you away from like the scares or whatever. You talk about like even on the industrial planet, right, where they're doing the stuff like that. They do such an amazing job of just visually from the planet, from the mining planet when she finally first sees the sun, to the space station. I mean, this is a gorgeous film to look at. I kept thinking about the director. I was like, this guy can really, and the cinematographers as well, right? Can really stage shots. I mean, what were you guys thinking about this?
I loved the asteroid belt and how they kept bringing us closer to the asteroid belt. And then finally, once the space station or the Romulus and Remus or whatever it is crashed into it, and it just started skimming it and then got taken over by it. Because, the way that the light was reflecting off of all of those asteroids, and I loved that. Every time they looked out the window and it was sort of getting closer, it was really beautiful.
The sort of the shots of the, like you said, Jason, where she sees the sun for the first time, and like the sort of character of the asteroid belt is really fascinating with the rings, right? And really beautiful. And the scene as the spaceship sort of descends into it and disintegrates on contact is really stunning.
The use of time in this film, when they hit you with that 30 minutes in. From then on out, it is when they say 30 minutes until we crash, the rest of the film's in real time.
Yep. I checked my watch. When they said 30 minutes, I was like, what? Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool, right? Like, John, you were talking about the idea that like it's more suspense and tension. I thought the pacing of this film was really the driving. Like, they kept changing. The timeline narrative kept changing, right? At first, it was like, okay, we've got 36 hours. Okay, we'll be in and out in no time. Of course, all this shit's going to change. And it's just like the way they keep manipulating time, I thought was really one of the brilliant parts of this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned, I referenced this a little bit ago, but you asked about the cinematography, and one of the things I thought was really well done with that was, most of the lighting in the film is dark, right?
Yeah.
It's dark and grimy and industrial feeling when they're on the planet, and most of the ship feels that way too. With the exceptions of, there are two points in the film where we get like brilliant white halogen kind of lights, right? And the one is when Rook, the Ian Holm character, is explaining the situation, right? Like after they've encountered the facehuggers for the first time, and they have like this moment of pause where he's like, yeah, that girl's fucked. And then in the lab is the other one, right? So mostly you get this really dirty, dark industrial feel, except when you've got the sort of bright sterility of the AI, which I think is a visual reflection of like the approach to human life that we see from the company and from the AI, right? Like it's this like sterile and bright, and we can deal everything in a lab-like setting. It's all going to be great. And then, as soon as you get outside of that little bubble, like things go bad in a hurry.
Yep.
Can we talk a little bit about the cast itself? Because I had thoughts on this, because there's only so many things, Alien in some ways faces the same problem that, say, Jurassic Park does, which is that you can only do so much with a non-speaking character, right? Jurassic Park, like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park can only do so many things. So really the interplay has to be the way that people react to, the threat involved here, right? And when we go back and watch the other Alien films, whether it was the Alien and Aliens, and even the Alien and Predator stuff, they're all largely people in their 30s and 40s, or even later than that. Like Harry Dean Stanton in their first Alien film was about 175 years old. This is a film. Every person we see on screen, with the exception of the lady behind the counter, right, is in their 20s. Like our lead, Kaylee Spaney, plays Rain. I think she's 26 years old, something like that. So we've got a really young 20-something cast. What did you think about the casting choices here? Did you like our leads? How do you feel about them? Were they compelling?
I loved Andy. I thought that he did a fantastic job, right? As a robot that has a few issues because he's so old, he's been around for most of her life, and she has to sort of like keep rebooting him and keep sort of restarting him. I just think that the guy, I don't know what that guy's name is, but he
David Johnson.
David Johnson. Okay. Which, by the way, is the name of a very good friend of mine. And I was like, and they couldn't be more different because my friend David Johnson is from Sweden, and he's tall, white, and has blonde hair and blue eyes.
His Johnson's last name is Jonsson. It's like the Swedish version.
Yep. It was the same thing. I was like, did he not tell me that he was in a new film? No, and I loved his range was fantastic because he went from sort of like a little brother type character to I am in charge. I know all of these things and I am going to take charge. And then he kind of he shifts back when she pulls out that thing. So I thought he was fantastically cast, and she also was, right? I mean, because she has to take a whole lot of charge as well, and she was smaller, I think, than everybody on at least on the ship that I saw, but she was like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And she it was her personality rather than her size that made her be the one in charge. But yeah, those two in particular, I was like, this is fantastic.
I would agree. Certainly with Andy, right? Like the range is really impressive, and the way, like you said, he sort of goes from one extreme to the other, and then sort of swings, sort of pendulums back into the middle in a sense towards the end. Shows a bit more humanity than some of the other cast members, frankly.
It's almost like Star Trek Data in Star Trek, only if Brent Spiner were a good actor. Sorry, I had to go on. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, it's okay. The other cast members did fine.
Largely forgettable.
Part of the deal there is that that they're, to stick with your Star Trek references, they're red shirts, right? They're like yes, yeah. They are partly in the movie to help sort of drive the plot forward, but they're also there as like they're there to die. We who are about to die. So, and so it's a little hard to get invested in them as people, and I felt like they felt a bit more like modern teenage kids than like hard Scrabble mining colony kids. Like, I didn't really buy that they had grown up in that environment.
That's fair, right? They didn't look like the kids that we see in the early 1900s before we start getting child labor laws.
But they didn't act like it either, right? And there are some references, like, Rain's got this dream at the beginning of the film where she's on this planet, and they reference it really briefly, but like there's no sense of like wistfulness or even like real hopefulness. It's just like it felt a little bit like, I don't know, it didn't feel like as big a sort of idealized fantasy as it probably should have been for people in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. I liked, like, again, you can only do so many different things, right? So I like the idea of pivoting towards a younger group. And I like the fact that this was a group of unknowns. None of us really had known, aside from the late Ian Holm, not really familiar with any of these these actors or so forth. I thought actually, Ian Holm was really the de facto third lead in this film. We'll come back to Andy because I want to talk more about him in a second. I think you guys are absolutely right. David Johnson got to play 3 different characters in this movie.
Yeah.
Right? And really, in a lot of ways, was the heart of the film. I mean, he and Rain both were that brother-sister dynamic. I do want to talk about the one person I recognized beforehand, and that was Isabella Merced, who plays the role of Kay, the young woman who is pregnant.
Okay.
Do you know where we know Isabella Merced from? She played the live screen action role of Dora the Explorer.
Wow. Okay, I could see that.
They put her in overalls in this movie, and I thought, you're gonna kill Dora, and we're gonna get to the scene in a little while. We're not gonna talk about the scene just yet, but I was like, holy fuck.
They could have gone further and like given her a map. You know what I mean?
Jesus Christ! Or if we see like a monkey inside the area with a face. Oh my God, where's Boots or the fox? Right? It's like with facehuggers. That would have been some clever in jokes to like completely ruin every millennial's life.
Yeah.
Anything like that, but that's what you get, millennials. This is Gen X talking here. So there was that. Okay. What did you like most about this film?
I liked that. So I know a little bit about the films because just culturally, just from being part of American culture and like seeing references on things. So when the lights turned on in the lab, I recognized it as a place that I had been before. You know what I mean? Like I've seen this place before. And then when Andy... Again, spoiler, when he shoots the alien and he says, get away from her. And I was expecting the rest. And then he shoots. And then there's a pause. And I was like, say it, say it, say it. And then he said, you bitch. I was like, yeah. This is my second alien film ever in my life. But I was like, whoa. Because I knew what the line was. Exactly.
Everybody knows that line. Yeah.
So I like, those were 2 of my favorite things.
John, what would you like?
All right, so I think my favorite little snippet is the bit where the guy's showing Rain how to use the gun. It's like, how did you learn this? It's like games and games and magazines. Like they have magazines, but so games and magazines. And that was, I thought, probably pretty fucking accurate.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing broader that I really liked about the movie is I liked that how to say this. I like that it puts fear and monsters into unknown places, right? Like I was thinking about this. I've had this conversation with classes where I've taught sort of medieval maps and monsters. Because one of the things about medieval maps is they have like monsters at the edges of the world, right? And one of the curious things that happens is that as Western Europeans explore the world and sort of learn it, those monsters get shifted further and further out. They're always like right over the horizon, basically. Like the history of like where Europeans think unicorns live is really fascinating because they keep like getting further and further out into like the Asian steppes. And then it's like, oh no, they're not here. They must be in Africa. And so at this point, we still do that with monsters, right? But we put them in space, or I guess in the terms of Pacific Rim, we put them in the bottom of the ocean, but like places we can't go and don't know. And so I liked that you have this sort of, that we're sort of continuing that. You have this sort of monsters at the edge, over the horizon, right? Like just where we don't know and haven't mapped and can't map. And that you have moments where you have moments where human endeavor, like all of the structures we know and understand, run into these monsters and just like completely fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I sort of like that. I like. Part of me feels like it's a clash of colonial societies, right? Like running into each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like the aliens are doing their own colonizing too.
Yeah.
I got to come back to Andy. For me, it was just full on hell yeah. Like once she puts that other chip in him and he just switches into like uploads, it's like, I know what to do now. And just goes into like ass kicking mode. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. And also I kept thinking, I was like, is this what people look like when they play soccer? Like, because I imagine this dude like in a tracksuit, like wearing Adidas in his off time. Like, I was like, is this like what a soccer player? Because that was like the Andy's body type. I was like, but he was great. He was just like that whole switch. I was like, oh, he's gonna kick ass for a while. And then after Rook says you have a new directive now, I was like, oh shit, Andy's gonna do a heel turn. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, it was so much just watching the character, watching the guy, David Johnson, do all of these different things in this character. And it like it's so easy for like the guy playing the childish character to be annoying, but I never felt that way. Mm-hmm. I really loved the idea that he was like some castaway parts. Like one of my favorite things when we read science fiction or things like that, or Lord of the Rings or anything like that, fantasy, is the allusion to this story that is never completely told to us. We have to kind of fill in the blanks. And I liked how I got to do that with Andy's character. I learned a little bit about about Rain's parents, what Andy meant to Rain, why she held on to him so much, like what that relationship must have been like. Like, I loved that.
Yeah.
You know, there's an interesting, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, there's an interesting aspect of his character in that when Rain's father like repurposes him and reprograms it, right? Like he is not just imbued with sort of a more childlike personality, but like his physical functions are sort of degraded from what he's actually capable of, right? Because we see that, right? Like, so you don't get this like, you know, childlike personality in like a ridiculously strong athletic body, right? So you get, he sort of, the entire being gets changed into the character of a kind of bumbling sweet brother, right?
Yeah. And even after, I think it's after his directive is changed, when they're walking through that hallway with all of the face things.
That was a good scene.
It was a great scene, but I loved how they kept working together, because they're like, how do we get through this hallway without them seeing us? And then Rain was like, if we turn the temperature up, will we be invisible? And he was like, it might work. And they just kept working together and playing off of each other, which I really liked. And then, of course, the part that really got me was when they were all sort of paused there because that guy's walkie-talkie came back on, and they're all just standing there, and he all of a sudden just goes, run, and they had to take off. Scene. I was like,
oh, I love that.
Like it just, oh yeah.
This was as close to having Jason Bourne in an alien film as we'll ever have. That's what Andy becomes, because one of the things I liked is like they're in that scene with the cryo chamber and all that, and the facehuggers are about to come, and then it's about to jump on Rain, and it just stops, and you look up, and then the camera pans up the facehugger's tail, and it's Andy holding onto this thing like a fucking boss. And just whips it into like an electrical panel, and you're like, it's on now, and you know it, and you know for a little bit you're about to get some fun ass kicking, which I think this film does a really cool job of. Is like you got the suspense and the horror and the gross and stuff like that, but there's also some stuff where it's like, oh yeah, let's go, you know, and that's part of it. There was also the aspect that I dug, which is like retrofuturism. You know, when Alien, you've got to make the graphics and all that stuff coincide and align with a film that comes out in 1979. You know, so the graphics have to look the same, and the games that they're playing have to look the same, even though the games that we might play now look better, right? So I like the attention to that, how they continue to do with that. I thought that was really cool. Were there parts of the film that kind of drove you nuts?
I've been going first this whole time, so I'm going to let John go first. But yes.
of little things, right? Like there's lots of moments of coincidence that annoyed me, like the fact that their spaceship like crashes into a landing hangar, like when it kind of gets out of control, it goes spinning through space and like just like slides into a docking bay.
Like, oh, you're going to get everybody back together, right?
Yeah. And with it goes through all of that without sustaining any real damage. Like that felt. Sure. I wondered what in the name of God Rain was farming on that planet.
Yeah.
Like, sure, her parents are in the mine, but she's a farmer, like with no. What are you growing, man? Mushrooms? I was annoyed that I felt like the movie touches on these ideas about sort of capitalism and colonialism as being extractive and really sort of crushing in a lot of ways, but doesn't dwell on it. Like it feels to me like the movie wears that rather lightly. The other thing that really kind of, and it's another small thing. The other thing that kind of annoyed me was the gravity on-off thing. Like that felt like such a contrivance. Like
I couldn't think of that as a MacGuffin. I thought that was such a cool because when they're coming at her, she's like the gravity's like, oh, she's gonna make them flow away. It's like, oh wait, no, she has to do this because of the blood.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
Well, no, not that. Like the cycling where it like turns the gravity on for like 30 seconds every once in a while just for the hell of it. Like
the purge, they called it the gravity purge.
The gravity purge. That's right. Like seemed like a completely unnecessary thing that's just there for plot reasons. And also the fact that like just randomly around the station there seem to be buttons that let you turn off gravity for the entire thing. Like just that.
Thank God 8-year-olds aren't running around that space station. Right?
I know. Yeah, like the junior high school kids on that place would have just wreaked havoc. Anyway, those are the things that sort of annoy me. So a bunch of small things, and then, like I said, the fact that it wears its sort of colonial critique less heavily or less honestly than I would like it to.
And I wonder too if that's because that's just like the critique of capitalism is just like a fact now, you know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be too heavy-handed with it. It's like, okay, we all see this, and of course she's trying to
established. Elsewhere. Like in the film, like especially the first two, were like, beating you over the head. Unless you're J.D. Vance, you pretty much understand what this is getting at, right? By the way, I'm saving this the whole time, but can we understand that quite literally the savior of the entire galaxy is a single cat lady? From the film, but go on. Kate, I'm sorry. I talked over you a little.
No. I was going to say what always gets me in films like this, and my husband actually pointed it out when we were watching Prometheus, however many years ago. There's always like a loose cannon scientist on the crew, right? It's somebody's like, woo! So it was like the guy who it's his girlfriend who is the first one to go. Do you know what I mean? And he gets up. When they're taking off, he's like, I'm going to take off and show how my cigarette just like disappears in one, and how the flame gets really high. And it's like, sit down and just buckle up. Like, these are unnecessary risks that you're taking. This is already a risky situation. Why make it riskier? And I know it's a movie. I know there has to be one, but like, it's such a trope. You know what I mean? And he's going to die. Like when he did that, I was like, he's either going to die now or he's going to die later because he does something else stupid. Like I was like, check. And then this may show how possibly little my, like reality was suspended maybe at this point. Maybe it was a self-preservation mechanism. But like when the woman gets the first sort of face hugger on her face and Rook comes on and he's like, she's dead. So you might as well just end her life now. And they're like, no, we can save her. I was like, you've killed everyone. You've killed everyone by trying to do this. Just don't, and I know we need it for the movie. We need all of that. But like those things just really got me.
That's a bit of a repeat from the first movie, right? Where like they let the guy back in the ship.
Yeah.
And even flex everybody. But there's some differences, right? Like here, they're like sitting in the wreck of a space station that's been completely destroyed by these things. And there's somebody who was there telling them like, oh yeah, no, like if you don't kill her, like this is your future. All this one day could be yours. And they're like, nah. Like,
I think we're good.
So it makes more sense in the context of the first movie. Here, you like it's a little bit of a harder sell, I think.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that both of you have, during the course of this episode, said how bad AI is, but also in this case, we should trust AI to murder our friends.
We're trusting a witness to a previous situation.
Okay.
Look, if AI tells me to kill you, I'm going to kill you, and that's just how it goes, Jason.
I want to make sure that the voice in your head, John Wyatt, is not named AI. So the next time we're in a conference, it's like, sorry, pal, salad fork. So,
no, I'd use a spoon. I'd use a spoon because it would hurt more.
You had to go. Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. I felt like the third act got a little long in the tooth due to the thing that we have to talk about. I kept hearing that there was a scene that was so gross that when they were filming it, everyone had to turn away, even while they were filming it in the moment. And I was like, and I kept waiting for it. And the whole time Tyler's going to die because he's the dick. And you're like, okay, we're going to enjoy watching him die because maybe he does like a face turn, which he does when he tries to kill the thing, and the acid comes down and kills him. I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't that bad. And then Dora the Explorer happens.
Has a baby.
Oh, Christ. Can we talk about that scene?
No, that was wild because I was super hopeful. What I was hoping for in the last part was like, okay, she puts that lady to sleep. I knew obviously something was going to happen after she stabs herself with the stuff.
Have to.
Yeah.
But like, I thought, okay, maybe it won't happen until they get to the new planet, and that's how it'll finish off with happy ending. But it's actually not.
That's actually what I thought was going to happen too.
Yeah. I was not expecting it to happen right then, and no, that was completely unexpected. I didn't know what was going to come out. I had no idea what was coming out there.
For a moment, when the egg thing opens up and it's humanoid, and you're like, oh, maybe they shouldn't murder it right away. Just for a second, like, no, this is alien.
No.
I didn't think that. I didn't think that at all.
No? Okay.
She thought that, though. Rain thought that. She was like, oh, look.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't find the scene itself all that sort of disgusting. Like I said,
it was the squirting. It was the squirting that got me.
Yeah. But
not the feeding on the mother, like moments after you.
No, that just seemed like nature taking its course. No, because I'd seen that too. That what you're talking about, the sort of the fact that there was this scene that was so bad that the cast couldn't watch. And so I think I was anticipating something much more visceral than it, and maybe longer than it wound up being, because it happens really fast. That whole ending with the sort of baby that goes bad. It didn't.
The hybrid.
Bad baby. I don't know. It didn't feel entirely necessary to me. And part of what makes the alien as a character so sort of terrifying, right, is it's hard to see. It's dark, and it's always in dark spaces, and you get glimpses of it in part, like or sort of scuttling off around the corner or the face, but you don't usually see the entirety of it. And even when you do, it's really imposing. And then like you end the movie with this like terrible hybrid baby thing that's like really visible because it's pale, and not, it's tall and sort of, it's supposed to be intimidating, but it doesn't have the same sort of like
presence
and gut impact that the alien does.
Yeah.
Well, I liked the creature design, but it reminded me too much of the creature design from the end of Alien 3, actually. And my other problem is that throwing the alien out of the airlock, for lack of a better term, it's a bit long in the tooth as well, as far as getting rid of the beast. I'm just like, we got to figure out some more inventive ways to kill it, right? I also think that there's the idea that does every film have to have its own special monster? Isn't the alien, the xenomorph, enough of a special monster to where, like, I think J-Dub, you're absolutely right when the idea is like, what makes it's not just it's the fact that it's hard to see and all that, like, what makes it's just relentless. It feels nothing. I don't know that alien is necessarily evil. It's biologically programmed to kill everything.
Right.
Yep.
So it doesn't stop. It doesn't feel. Yep.
I think I felt like they were going for sort of a real uncanny valley sort of thing, like where they were trying to by making it a much more human-like thing with a really obviously human face and head, right? Like I felt like they were going for something really disquieting in maybe slightly subtler ways. There's nothing terribly subtle about that monster, but like something really disquieting rather than like disgusting, in a way that you can't maybe put your finger on. I felt like that's what they were going for, but I also felt like it didn't land.
Yeah, it felt like the engineer, like a cross between the engineers and the alien from Prometheus. But again, we've seen that, like, yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. I was like, okay, is this going to somehow tie into Prometheus, where this guy like escapes and ends up on a planet, but it didn't.
Here's the thing I liked that they let Rain and Andy get away. I was expecting for them to be like, you know what, let's kill everybody. I felt like it was almost too obvious to kill everybody, and like it would be too easy because they very much kind of get away a lot like Sigourney Weaver does in the very first film. In a lot of ways, I don't want to call this a soft reboot because I never got soft reboot feeling out of this. It did feel like very much like a love letter in some ways, or like an homage to the first film.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like how, like, even before Kay had the baby, the hybrid thing, I was ready for the movie to be done then. I was like, okay, you know what? Mm-hmm. It's okay for the three of them to go. It's going to be all right. And then I was expecting the inevitable post-credit scene where the alien emerges from her while she's in the thing, But they didn't do that. They didn't kill off Andy. They didn't kill off Rain. So I was like, okay. Yeah, I know what they were going for. It does feel like the film went a bit long with that.
I was sort of hoping that what you would wind up with is like we were talking about a second ago, like sort of something that leads into a further movie, right? Where like I felt like there was an opportunity there rather than like having the alien sort of grow inside of her and birth out of her, to like actually transform her into some sort of like that doesn't transform her physically so much, but like transforms her into emotionally and intellectually into an alien, right? So you get this like weird hybrid in the next movie where like it's her, but she is in fact this sort of weird killing machine.
Right. Or maybe she could be that killing machine that could hunt down aliens. I don't know.
But that's not where we went.
No.
Like, however, you guys say this, like, I would actually want to follow, and this is the first time I've seen this from an Alien franchise in a while, because they made the Alien Resurrection film, which was the one with Winona Ryder and Sigourney Weaver. It was awful. I actually want to follow this story. I felt like Rain and Andy were compelling leads. Like, I'm sympathetic to them. Felt like they held the camera well. Mm-hmm. I would want to follow this story, at least for another film, kind of like what we got with Alien Covenant, and with Prometheus and then Covenant. So I would kind of I would actually like to see this.
I was almost expecting, because they did go longer with the whole baby thing, and then when she gets into the pod and she's doing her sort of whatever it is, her last log before she goes to sleep.
Right.
I was sort of expecting it to kind of fade to black and then fade up again to like 9 years later, they show up on the planet or something. But then they just really didn't give that to you. And yeah, I had hoped.
Really?
I wanted at least a for sure happy-ish kind of ending. Like they got to where they had wanted to go.
That's fair. And I feel like it would be too cheap for them to arrive at the planet and like, oh, look, there's a stowaway, because we've seen that so many times, right? I guess let's bring this to a close. General thoughts on this film. Did you like the movie? Is it worth going to see?
I think so. Yeah, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of horror movies, but it was enjoyable. It's a really pretty film. As we've said a couple different times, the sort of lead characters are really good, and I think in a lot of ways it's a retelling of the original movie, right? So like if you liked Aliens, if you like Alien, and you'd like to see it with a slightly different cast and a slightly different telling, like absolutely go see it. It's a good time for that.
Kate?
I did like it. I was actually surprised that I liked it, but more for, because we're all academics. And so I was like, how can I use some of these clips maybe in class to talk to my students about AI or capitalism or, things like that. So how can I use it kind of as a learning thing? But also, entertainment value, I think, is pretty top notch. If you're in there you're going to it for what it is, which is an alien movie with two kick-ass leads, right? And a woman, Sigourney Weaver-esque, that is showing up and going, we have these problems that come up in a line and we need to solve every single one so that we can survive. And of course, Andy, I would love to see a movie with any movie with David Johnson in it. I think I'm probably going to be a fan of, just because he was amazing, but also to see that character and see what happens to him on the new planet.
Yeah, for me, what this movie felt like? I was trying to conceptualize how I felt about this, and I agree with both of you. I liked this movie. I don't like horror movies. I do like the Alien franchise generally, because I still don't think of them as necessarily horror films, although the first one definitely is. This felt like, if I'm going to put this in terms of Star Wars, this felt like a bit like Rogue One. Is it the same as, say, Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, which would be Alien and Aliens, right? No, it's not. Right. But it's a really good entry. It's a very solid entry in the film. And if like Alien and Aliens had never existed, this would be a fun movie to watch that would give us a whole lot. Visually, it's stunning. You've got compelling leads. I like what the director did. We're in and out in about 2 hours. It's a little long here and there, but otherwise, it's got some really cool scenes. I could just put this on at home and I would rewatch this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's like, I don't know how there's been a bunch of Alien films now. I think there are 3 good ones: Alien, Aliens, and this one. I liked it. So yeah. All right. Final thoughts for historians of movies. Are we historians? I don't know where we are. Final thoughts on this film, Kate.
Okay. I have a couple, which hopefully will not open up more cans of worms. One, that I know that there were people of different ethnicities who were main characters in this film, but the fact that the helper, the partner, was a person of color, to me it was just a little bit weird, right? Because if we're talking about, especially in 2024, because if we're talking about this as kind of a retelling of Sigourney Weaver, right? Is Andy the cat? You know what I mean? And like, if so, that's a bit of a strange take. And then I had another one that was much less substantial, and I forgot what it was.
It was that less substantial.
It was. It really was.
So why?
I had a similar kind of thought about Andy and representation in that respect. I thought it was an interesting choice that the movie's one Black character goes from being free, relatively speaking, right, to being very specifically property, and then sort of back again, right? But like, I thought that was an interesting choice that for a lot of the plot of this movie gets sort of pulled forward by him being and acting as an agent of of the company, and not just an agent, but like I said, sort of property of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd sort of like to know more about how the universe here works, right? Because you have this sort of company planet, and Rook's character talks about how humans aren't sort of designed for space colonization, but he's talking specifically about like this sort of capitalist enterprise. Like they don't handle working in the mines very well, and like they keep dying when we want them to produce stuff. Man, we need to fix that so they capitalize better. They capital better. But then you also have this like other planet that's like not company controlled and doesn't allow the androids on. So I'd like to know more about what the rest of the universe looks like. Like are these people just sort of operating in a small corner of it, or is this like what most of the universe looks like? I don't know.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like they're with this particular film, they're doing some things maybe that I'd like to see the Star Wars franchise start to do, which is like you never hear the name Ripley one time. And so we all know who Ripley is, how important she is, right? But there are other stories to be told. It's a big galaxy, right? And really the big thing uniting all of this stuff is this Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which is not good in any form, shape, or function. So how are people dealing with this evil that is being unleashed by Weyland-Yutani and other spaces, other times, and stuff like that? And there are other alien films coming on the way.
Really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This one takes place immediately between Alien and Aliens. So I like what they're doing. We'll see if they come back to with this cast or not, or if there were two remaining people from this cast. But I was overall a lot happier than I expected to be. I thought that this was a solid film, and I would recommend watching it. So we made some critiques of this film, but I think still overall it's an enjoyable movie, fun movie to watch.
I do just want to say, because we hadn't said anything about the timeline before this, but when Rook says 170 days ago, blah blah blah, so like 6 months, before that is when Alien took place, and that to me, I was like, oh wow, okay, so this is the timeline that we're working in. So what needs to be true to make this work, basically? And I think, again, like you've both said, they did a good job, really, I think, fitting it into that chunk of time and not saying Ripley, even though obviously Rook would have known who she was and what she did.
All right. Almost as good as this film. No, better than this film. It's our time together today. So Kate Sheppard, John Wyatt Greenlee, thank you both for being here.
Jason Herbert.
You guys are coming a lot back on. We're doing Raiders of the Lost Ark. Or not.
Yes.
Last Crusade. Just like Raiders. So
Last Crusade. And I finally have started watching Dial of Destiny. I only have small chunks of time to do it in, but I've started it. Okay,
because I've got you signed up for Dial as well. And
okay, good.
Someone's going to have to do Temple of Doom with me. We're going to have that's the indie film that we're all going to have to go. Some point in time, we're all going to have to go.
So
let's talk about Orientalism. Yes,
there are eels in that movie.
You're on. You're signed.
They cut into them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the guy who eats them. Yep.
Sorry, John. You're in on the film. If there's eels, I mean, you are the world's foremost eel historian.
It's true.
And that's a wrap here at Historians of Movies Podcast. Thank you so much to our guests, Kate Sheppard and John Wyatt Greenlee. This was a blast. Guys, thank you much. We got more pods with those guys coming up because I love them so much. We got Fletcher Powell making this show happen. I love him so much too. It's a love fest over here. Guys, thank you so much for being here. If you like the pod, continue to like and subscribe. We've got a Patreon page. You can find us at patreon.com/historians of the movies. Thank you so much for continuing to support this mission that we're doing. We'll catch you next time. Ciao for now.